The boy's voice trembled through the static. Small, fragile, almost drowned by the wind on that dying planet. "Sir, can you bury my sister?" he asked. And for a moment, the entire comms room went silent. Captain Hayes had heard a lot in his years patrolling Alien World, but never that. Not from a child. Not from them. Out there in the ruins of a war, humanity didn't start. A human soldier and an alien boy were about to prove something no fleet command ever predicted: that compassion could be more powerful than any weapon ever built. If that opening already hit you right in the chest, stick around. Because this story isn't about victory or defeat. It's about what truly makes us human. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Tap like, hit subscribe, and share this one with someone who loves emotional, cinematic sci-fi. All right? Let's begin. Because what the human did next changed two species forever. The wind cut across the shattered valley, dragging the ashes of what used to be a colony into the gray horizon. Captain Hayes stood at the edge of it all, visor cracked, oxygen low, heart heavier than his armor. He'd seen the aftermath of alien wars before, but this was different. It didn't look like a battlefield. It looked like a graveyard. The scanners picked up faint biosigns, small, fading, maybe an animal, maybe a child. His team was gone. Comms were dead. He was alone. Still, instinct made him move. Down the slope, through the twisted metal and burned trees, he found what the scanner had caught. A small creature half buried under rubble. Pale skin, almost translucent. Thin arms clutching a smaller, motionless body. At first, Hayes thought they were both gone, but then, a twitch, a breath, a voice. "Sir, can you bury my sister?" The words were soft, broken by a strange accent, but clear enough to pierce through his translator. Hayes froze. The creature, no, the boy, looked maybe 8 years old in human years. Huge dark eyes full of something he hadn't seen in any alien gaze before, fear and trust mixed together. He dropped to one knee, slowly removing his helmet. The air stung his lungs, but he didn't care. "What's your name, kid?" he asked gently. The boy blinked, confused, then whispered, "Tari." His small hands never left the cold fingers of his sister. For a moment, there was only the wind. Hayes didn't know what to say. He had been trained to treat alien species as potential hostiles, or at best, objectives, but this was no enemy. This was just a child asking for help. So he nodded. "All right, Tari. We'll bury her together." He used the edge of his gauntlet to scrape away at the dirt, careful not to disturb the fragile body beside the boy. The sister, smaller, frailer, had a blue petal tucked behind her ear. Hayes hesitated before asking, "What was her name?" The boy's voice trembled. "Lyra." They worked in silence, the kind that settles between two beings who understand loss even if they don't share a language. When the small grave was finally ready, Hayes wrapped the girl's body in what was left of his emergency cloak, the same one he'd been saving for his own survival. The gesture made the boy stare at him, eyes glimmering with disbelief. "You help us?" Tari whispered. "Yeah," Hayes said quietly. "Humans bury their dead too." The boy watched as Hayes placed small stones over the mound one by one. The planet's dying sun bled red light over the ruins, painting everything in gold and sorrow. Hayes noticed a small trinket on the ground, a charm made of glass and metal, probably from their culture. He picked it up and placed it on the grave. "You think she'd like that?" he asked. The boy nodded weakly. It was hers. A long silence followed. Then Tari looked up at him again, eyes filled with a question that cut deeper than anything Hayes expected. "Why humans come here?" Hayes exhaled slowly. "We were told your people started the fight, that we had to protect our colonies." The boy frowned. "That's what they said about you." The truth in that moment hung between them, heavy, bitter, impossible to untangle. Two sides told to hate, two survivors trying to make sense of the wreckage. Hayes finally said, "Maybe both were wrong, Tari just looked at him, tilting his head as if trying to read something behind the man's tired eyes. "You have sister?" "Yeah," Hayes whispered after a pause. "Her name's Mara. Haven't seen her in years." The alien boy reached out, touching Hayes's glove. "Then, you understand." And somehow, that single gesture, small, trembling, genuine, broke through every wall that war had built. Hayes wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a human being standing beside another soul who'd lost everything. As the wind carried the last of the ash into the sky, Hayes stood. "Come on," he said softly. "We can't stay here. It's not safe." But the boy didn't move. He was still staring at the grave. "If we go, she'd be alone." Hayes crouched beside him again. "No, kid. She's not alone anymore." He tapped his chest plate. "She's right here, with both of us." The boy finally nodded, and for the first time he let go of her hand. Together they walked toward the fading light, a soldier and an alien child, leaving behind a small grave that meant more than any victory. Neither of them knew it yet, but what began as a burial would soon become the first act of peace between their worlds. The night on that ruined world came quietly, too quietly. The stars looked strange here, stretched thin by the planet's broken atmosphere. Captain Hayes sat near a dying fire, while the boy, Tari, slept curled up beside him. Every few minutes, Hayes glanced toward the small grave behind them, a pile of stones glowing faintly under the alien moon. It wasn't much, but it was something. He had sent the distress beacon hours ago, yet no signal had returned. Maybe the command didn't care about one lost soldier. Or maybe they didn't want to rescue someone who'd sided with an alien. Hayes chuckled bitterly. "Guess that makes me a traitor now," he whispered to the wind. But as he looked at the boy's fragile form, wrapped in the remnants of his own cloak, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe being a traitor to hate wasn't the worst thing. By morning, Tari woke to the sound of boots crunching over dust. He blinked sleepily. "You go?" he asked, voice small. Hayes shook his head. "Not leaving without you." The boy stared for a long time, as if waiting for the trick. Humans had come before, and soldiers, medics, scavengers. None stayed long enough to care. So when Hayes offered his hand, Tari hesitated, then slowly took it. His fingers were cold but steady. "We're going to find shelter," Hayes said. "Then we'll get off this rock. Deal?" Tari nodded. "Deal." They walked for hours across the cracked plains, past burned villages and shattered towers. The war had left the planet like a ghost, empty cities echoing with silence. But here and there, Hayes spotted signs of life. A footprint, a light flicker, a melody of wind chimes still hanging from a doorway. And in that quiet, he noticed something beautiful. The world wasn't entirely dead. Flowers were pushing through the ash, thin and stubborn, glowing blue in the dim light. "Your planet fights back," Hayes said softly. Tari smiled faintly. "We always do." Those words, simple, proud, reminded Hayes of every human survivor he'd ever met. People rebuilding after disasters, soldiers writing letters home, kids growing up under broken skies. It hit him then. They weren't so different. They never were. As the sun dipped low, a distant hum filled the air. Engines. Hayes froze. It was a dropship. Human. He turned to Tari. "They found us." But the boy's face changed. Fear. "Humans hurt us." Hayes crouched. "Not this time. I'll talk to them." The ship landed in a storm of dust and heat. Soldiers poured out, weapons drawn. Their commander spotted Hayes immediately. "Captain, we thought you were dead." Hayes raised a hand. "Lower your guns. He's with me." The commander's eyes narrowed. "That's a native. The species responsible for this mess." Hayes stood taller. "That child lost everything in the same war we did. He's under my protection." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The air trembled with tension. Then the commander finally said, "You've gone soft, Hayes." "Maybe," Hayes replied. "But soft hearts build better worlds than cold ones." He walked back to Tari and lifted him into the ship. The boy's small hand gripped his arm, tight, trusting. Later, as the ship broke through the clouds, Tari pressed his forehead against the window. "Will humans let me live?" Hayes looked at him and smiled faintly. "If they don't, they'll answer to me." The boy turned to him again. "Then I'm not afraid." Hayes leaned back in his seat, watching the stars slide by. For the first time in a long while, he felt something close to peace. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the charm from Lyra's grave, that tiny glass pendant. It caught the light, sparkling faintly. He placed it in the boy's hand. "Keep this. She'd want you to remember her, and what we did today." Tari nodded, clutching it to his chest. "And you, human, remember us too." Hayes smiled. "I will, kid. Every time I see the stars." Outside, the planet grew smaller, its surface reflecting the fire of dawn. But in that single act, a human saving an alien child, burying a sister instead of burning another bridge, something vast had begun to change. A peace treaty would one day be signed. Historians would write about the burial incident, and children from both species would learn of the soldier who broke the rules to do the right thing. But that night, it wasn't about history. It was about one boy, one grave, and a promise that humanity could still be kind, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And that was the story of Captain Hayes and the little alien boy who asked only for a burial, and found a brother instead. If this story touched you, if it reminded you why humanity still matters out there in the stars, don't scroll away. Hit like, tap subscribe, and share this one with someone who believes compassion is our greatest weapon. Because in the end, maybe being human was never about where we came from, but what we choose to do when someone asks for help.